What up? What up? Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name is Nick Engvall. I got a special episode tonight, whenever you're taking this in, because I got two of my homies with me that haven't been on the podcast with me yet, but we got some great news because we're about to launch our own podcast together here in the next few days. So, Dexter, Keith, welcome to the show. What's good? How you guys doing?
What's up, man? Glad to be here finally. Been in the Discord for a couple of years now, but haven't had the pleasure of jumping on yet, so I'm excited, man.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for a pretty long time, and we've done one on mine, but now full circle.
Yep, definitely. So, a little background. Let's see. I think Dexter and I have been on. We've been following each other on Twitter for like 6 or 7 years at least. It's been forever. I don't know exactly why or how, but both being Giants fans, and I feel like we talked a little Tupac back in the day on there. I'm always posting Tupac lyrics, so that was probably one of the things. But we just had the vibe, so it was like, okay, hit that follow button, and we've just been talking off and on ever since. And then when we started the Sneaker History Discord a few years back, got to know Dexter a little bit more, connected again. He had me on his podcast, the Industry Special podcast, which was incredible. Got to share some crazy stories about, Giants memories, my grandma, sneaker stuff, sneaker history stuff, just all sorts of crazy stuff. And that kind of evolved into, other people too. The community itself the sneaker history community has kind of evolved into like this, like podcast guest, like whirlwind of people that kind of circle around and connect with each other and find their vibes. Right. So I'm going to just shamelessly plug this for Dexter right now, because if you have not listened to Varian and Clint the first time around, second time is great too. But the first time around is a little bit better, in my opinion, just a little. But it's just an incredible conversation, and it's one of those things where like you never know when you meet somebody how much you can have in common and how much you can just be like connected, and like sharing all these stories and hearing the three of you guys talk was just like, it was so awesome. And we've been really lucky to be able to do that with the Sneaker History Podcast and having the community itself. Like Keith said, Keith hopped in a couple years ago. We've really been trying to figure out what it's all about over the last couple of years. But in the last few months, I've really wanted to bring people from the community that wouldn't normally be out doing their own things and like starting a podcast or starting a YouTube channel, but like have these cool and interesting stories and backgrounds. And like, we all sit there and look out for each other as much as we can throughout the weeks with the releases, and hopping on to community calls occasionally and trivia nights and all these different things that we do, meetups. So like Keith and I met for the first time in person at the very first like kind of community meetup in the Bay Area, which is like kind of in that lull for the pandemic. So it was like we went and checked out what was that, like a Stussy pop-up type thing? I can't remember what that was called, but it was just cool. And you get to meet people, you get to hang out. And now we've got like the Exhaust Notes podcast going on one side, and these guys and I are going to start a new podcast. Well, have already started a new podcast. You just haven't listened to it yet, but you'll get to it this week. It's going to be called Crown and Stitch, and you might be able to guess that we're all about our fitteds. So I think it's going to be a blast. It already has been a blast. We're gonna talk about fitteds. We're gonna connect the dots with some sneaker stuff occasionally, but there's just a whole world of hats and fitteds. And I wanted to have these guys on Sneaker History Podcast so you could be introduced to them more officially, I guess, if you haven't got to meet them through the Discord community. But there's a lot of common connections between sneakers and fitteds, and we just wanted to chop it up a little bit. So I'll start it off by just saying, let's start with the sneaker aspect of it, right? Like, what got you into sneakers? What was that thing that was like that clicked, or what was that pair maybe that you kind of had to have that first time or stuck in your mind?
For me, I want to say maybe in about third grade, I saw one of my best friends come to school in the Gary Payton gloves, and they blew my mind. You know, it was kind of like the most unique sneaker I'd ever seen at that point, and I knew I had to have them. I was, saving my $2 a week allowance, and ended up splitting the cost with my mom, and it was just an amazing feeling. You know what I mean? To be able to have that first sneaker that you saw that really like had you in awe, and being able to put those on my feet. It was just like, there was no feeling that could beat it. And I think even later that year, a pair of Jordan 14s, the Last Shot 14s, I was able to get a pair of those. And man, I've been off and running ever since. There were little lulls, in my sneaker collecting and sneaker wearing career, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I've always had my eye on them, even during the times where, money was tight and I couldn't afford them. But I've just always been so intrigued by, the sneaker community, and just the way they look and the way they feel, man. Is just, like I said, there's no better feeling than putting on a fresh pair of kicks that you love and that you enjoy.
I probably told all these stories on various podcasts, probably the podcast me and Nick did or Lord knows. But I got into shoes and kicks because that's what my favorite sports athletes were wearing. So it wasn't like, oh, I want it because it's fashion. I was like, I want those because Penny Hardaway wears those. I want those because Shaq has those on. I want those because Iverson has those on. I wasn't a big Jordan fan coming up just because everybody was so crazy over Jordan. So I was like, I'll find my own guy. And then Penny got drafted. I was like, yes, this is perfect. Tall point guard, let's do it. So I remember him wearing various Nike shoes, but they didn't have the Penny moniker on it. They had the one at first, and then they moved on. And, he had like, the Penny ones and Penny twos. But the story I'll tell is the Penny twos. I was short my whole damn life until high school. And I got the Penny twos, the home, the white and blues. And they were a size 6 because my foot hadn't quite grown yet. And I had, I don't know if, who's listening to this, but the kid size and the adult size, or the big kid size, whatever the case, they were the same shoe, but they didn't look quite the same. Your air bubble might not go all the way around the back. You just had the little baby, or if you had like a tiny foot, you didn't get those 2 air bubbles in the front, something like that. So the first pair, going to school or starting off the year, they were, the small kids version. And then around Christmas time's coming up and my foot's getting a little bigger. I'm telling Mom, like, yo, I think I can fit that 6.5 now. She was like, oh, we'll see, But I was going to Catholic school. So she'd always get me like, I pay so much money for education. You always want these shoes. I'm like, yeah, but I'm really good at basketball. It's the kicks, Mom, And so when we were sitting in her room watching something and the damn commercial came on, Penny 2 commercial. And I was like, oh my God. Right. And she's sitting right next to me. I'm like, yo, I gotta have those. She's like, I told you. Nope. You got your basketball shoes, right? And so I'm like, oh fuck, whatever, right? So I'm just like, out of my head, not even tripping off it. Christmas Day comes, I get a little Sega game. I'm like, cool, right? I don't know what it was, Mortal Kombat or something. I don't know, whatever. And then the next box, it looks like a shoe box. I'm like, yo, nah, it's something else. You probably got me, I don't know. Rip it open, Penny 2s, Awake, blacks. I was like, oh my God, right? That was the most shocked I've ever been about shoes. That's when I was like, I think my mom was like, yo, this kid's obsessed. And yes, I have been obsessed ever since. It's all because of Penny and Lil Penny.
That's awesome, man. That's so true, though. Penny was he was so important back then, too. Like, because he was like just different, right? And then Little Penny on top of it, it was like, this might be blasphemous for a podcast called the Sneaker History Podcast, but I would almost, I would say like Penny gave Jordan a run for his money for about 3-4 years there with the shoes he wore.
He did.
So,
and on the court too, until the knees went out on him.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yep. Yeah, it's crazy too, because I was kind of the opposite of you in terms of like growth. So like, I got my first pair of Jordans like the summer of 8th grade, I think, 8th to 9th grade. I worked like landscaping and like did all this crazy stuff. I was umpiring little league games. I was just like trying to make the money to buy a pair of Jordans, right? And ended up buying the charcoal black and red Jordan 9s, which, you know, now people don't like the 9s as much, but being a baseball guy, like I was still a Jordan fan throughout those years where most people weren't. And I remember I could have bought like I think the 10s were there and the Air Carnivore, if you guys remember that shoe with the crazy straps.
That's a good one.
Were there.
I gotta look this up.
The 9s were on sale, so I just went with the 9s. And like it was obviously like a classic shoe, but I wore it for I just wore it in the ground. I mean, I still have my pair, but they're crumbled all to hell. And but I say I was kind of the opposite because I was, you know, at like 11, 12 years old, I was wearing a size 13, but I hadn't grown height wise hardly at all. Like, so like, you know, 8th grade, I'm like wearing a size 13, but I'm like, you know, 5'3", 5'4". And then 9th grade came around and like my feet stopped growing at 13, like at a size 13, but like I sprouted up in 9th grade and was like, by the time like end of 9th grade was there, I was like, you know, 6'1". I'm like, okay, cool. Like finally got to a certain point here where like, I don't look, my uncles used to make fun of me. They said I look like an L because my feet were so big, you know? But it's just one of those things, you know, like those same memories, man. Right? Of like, just like hooks you in. And then once you have it in your mind, you're like, damn, like I'm going to pay attention to this all the time. And like he said, like it kind of ebbs and flows, right? Like you know, I'm really lucky to have been able to like work in the footwear industry for so long. But at the same time, like it was not that way for a long time, right? Like I was like, okay, well, I got to go get this, you know, corporate job and, you know, make sure I can make ends meet. Cause like, once you start rolling into life, there's all those things that kind of just get in the way of your hobbies. So that's also why I think it's going to be dope to do this podcast with you guys on the hat side, because, you know, like these are things that like kind of like with sneakers, you've got to be paying attention to it to just see what's going on out there and to really understand what's going on, because the average person might look and see somebody wearing a fitted and snapback, whatever, and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. I'll go grab one of those, you know, and nothing against, like, I'm obviously a huge fan of just the basic black and orange Giants hats. You know, we could get into the details on the Crown and Stitch podcast dropping on Wednesday, but like the details when you get into it are so much deeper and so much, you know, like you could just go down these rabbit holes of like, okay, like we've already talked about it on a couple episodes of like just the changes in the Giants logos throughout the years, the changes in the colors that the teams wear slightly, and all these things. So it's a pretty fascinating world, but it's also very similar to the sneaker thing, right? Like came along, I would say maybe a little bit later and had a little bit higher ups and downs on the fitted side of things. Cause you know, back in, I don't know, Matt, let's say back in the mid 2000s, right? Early to mid 2000s, you had that Mitchell and Ness like throwback era where everybody in hip hop was matching something to their jersey and like some form of Air Force Ones. And it was like those colors, you know, like Keith wearing the Sox hat tonight, those colors would be on, they'd have to find a jersey to match that and have to find the Air Force Ones to match that, or customize a pair of Air Force Ones to match that. And that was the way it was, right? Like it was like the formula was like applied across almost everyone that was rocking this stuff back then. And then fitteds kind of took a little lull when the economy kind of went down the drain in like 2008, 2009. It felt like the brands were like trying to figure out like, okay, is this going to be a thing that comes back around to the extent that it was? But also, like, how can we kind of navigate that to make it something that, you know, like hype just drives so much now, right? And, you know, everybody wants to say, like, it comes from Supreme, which they definitely figured out a formula that works, you know, like saying, okay, Thursday mornings, be here. You got to get it. This is what it is. And it's going to be gone no matter what it is. And I think as sneakers started to do that as well, and the resale market started to kind of push sneakers into the, especially like I would say like 2012, 2015 era, right? Where you didn't have StockX, you didn't have GOAT, but like eBay was popping. Like everything was on eBay. There was hundreds of thousands of pairs of crazy shoes on eBay, and every new release was there, a week ahead of time. But there was like literally hundreds of those new releases there because everybody was trying to backdoor them out of their Foot Locker job, or, the early guys that were reselling like big business wise. But it's kind of crazy to see the fitted stuff now evolve even beyond that, right? Where collections and themes and all these things that like sneakers does a pretty good job of that storytelling, but it's always very focused, right? It's like you only have one or two shoes in a pack, maybe 3, 4 tops. But with fitteds now, we can expand that and seeing brands like Hat Club and, some of the other brands that we talk about on the show going like, okay, cool, we're going to do 12, 15, 20 different fitteds under this same storyline, but all of them are going to have a little bit of a different twist, right? So I'm really like excited to be able to pay more attention to it and like talk to you guys about it every week because one, I just don't get to see it all. And as we've already talked about on the show, the podcast has already cost me at least, 8 purchases so far. And it's just going to be, it's going to be a blessing and a curse in the best way possible. But for me, fitteds were a baseball thing and really started that way, from going to Giants games and, just kind of like being a fan of playing baseball. And so we get into this like in more depth on our show, Crown and Stitch. But like for the audience that's listening to Sneaker History right now, why don't you guys share how you guys got into fitteds and like what kind of kickstarted it for you and like where you're at today too, like how you kind of view the fitted world compared to maybe sneakers and copping sneakers even.
For me, I mean, like both of you guys, I'm a lifelong Giants fan. And one thing that always stuck out to me when I watched the Giants play when I was young was JT Snow. He was like one of my favorite players, and he had the little flip down glasses that would, they would be up against the bottom of his visor, and you flip them down. And I don't know what caught my eye about that, but it had me wanting a Giants hat real bad, and I was a little kid. I didn't even know what size fitted I wore, none of that, but I knew I had to have the hat. It was, between that and then Griffey at the All-Star game. He was being a left-handed batter when I played baseball, just trying to emulate his swing and kind of just his whole swagger. Griffey was the guy for me as far as non-Giant players, and the backwards hat at the All-Star game and all that. It kind of sent me down that path of paying attention to hats. And then now for me, like you had mentioned, Nick, it's one of the main things that like draws me into a lot of fitteds is the different collections they have and the hooks they have to different themes. It'll be something that maybe no one else would notice, but if something resonates with me about a certain theme or a certain pack that they're dropping and I know what it is and it's something that I enjoy, just like a sneaker collab, if it's something that speaks to you or someone that's doing a collab that you like, whether it's a musical artist or whatnot, those are the things that for me really make me enthusiastic about certain hats and stuff. I'm not really picky as far as what teams I wear, minus the Dodgers. Sorry to any Dodgers fans out there, but
praise the Lord,
you will not find any Dodgers hats on my head. So, so besides that, everything's fair game, which gives me kind of some freedom to, if they have a certain pack that doesn't have a Giants hat in it, or I think another logo looks cool. I'm a big sucker for a lot of the retro logos too. I've been looking recently for. You remember those old Texas Ranger logos that have the cowboy hat sitting on top of the Ranger script? I don't know what it is about that, but I don't know. That logo looks so cool to me. So I've been on the hunt for one of those lately. And, just like you said, it just kind of snowballs into staying on Instagram all day and waiting for hat drops.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a very expensive habit, a very expensive hobby. Like shoes are too, but I don't know. It's just something about spending $50, 55, $60 on a damn hat. It's just like, damn. It just seems like it's three times the damage somehow. But yeah, Keith, I don't have any Texas Rangers hats and I need one. I have a few Astros hats, but I got to get on a Rangers hat because me personally, yes, no Dodgers, forget about it. But I will go with most American League teams. No Angels, no Red Sox, no Yankees. Outside of that, I will. If the logo's nice, the color's nice, I'll give it a shot. But I got into hats because my dad was always a hat guy, not like a collector like that necessarily. He just always wore hats. So then he would, pick up all kinds of random hats here and there. But he always had a hat on his head. He had a fro and a hat. So just like my hair is kind of long, but his was just like up to here. So he almost looked like those old school 70s baseball players who had the fro come out the back, on the sides.
Yeah.
That was my pops. But he always had some random hat, trucker hat, fitted hat, snapback, whatever the hell. Always had a hat on. So I was always wearing hats, but it wasn't until the mid 90s when Puffy and May started coming with those red and blue Yankees fitteds, even though I'm not a Yankees fan, just to see them with the colors that weren't on field. It was rare. It was, it was something different. I was like, damn, And so it was hard getting your local team and a different color back then. Now it's nothing. But back then, you weren't just going to go down to wherever mall you're at and find a San Francisco Giants red hat or an A's blue hat. It just wasn't going to happen. So I had a couple Yankees hats back then. I also had a Dodgers hat, which lasted probably 2 weeks until my uncle found out and sat me down, explained the laws of life to me. And yeah, never again. I don't know where that hat is. I think it's burning in hell. But that's how I got into fitteds with pretty much Puffy and Mace, shiny suits, fitted hats. And from there, I just always wore hats, started getting a lot of Giants hats. I have the same black and orange Giants hat probably 15,000 times over. There's a picture on my Instagram or Twitter where I just have a bed full of just the basic black and orange Giants hats. But then I got into Hat Club because they were making these real obscure minor league hats. I've never heard of these teams in my life. Some of these teams only last 3-4 years. Sometimes they last 2 years. Sometimes they last 20 years. But they had these crazy logos. And I was like, oh, this is where it's at. So I started collecting those and then they started doing, the patches on the side. So it was like, oh, it's an A's fitted, but it's the 1989 Battle of the Bay. I'm like, oh, got to get that. And then they started doing that. Then they started doing, these collections and drops of random colors and schemes. And then everybody else got on, and now you can't buy a hat anymore from them unless you give them a pint of blood with your order. But to finish that up,
unless you got like $500 resale too, man.
You tell me about it. I still can't find that Fournette hat. If anybody out there has the Fournette Sports World San Francisco Giants in a half, 5/8, 3/4, I will make the shit work. I will give you whatever you want. No, almost whatever, almost. But when it comes to hats with me, I buy it out the box or out the thing. I leave the stickers on. That's just how I do it. I don't really bend the brim unless it needs to be bent to fit my head properly. I put the pins on. So that's how I get down. I know Nick is taking everything off immediately. I think Keith is kind of the same way, slight bend of the brim, but me, I'm almost like take out the box and put it on my head.
I think that's what's going to make the podcast really interesting, right? We're all like a little bit different in the way that we approach it, right? And I think we talk about it on one of the episodes, but I always kind of go back to that like new era commercial from like, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, where it was like crush it, bend it, flip it. All the different ways that people wear hats, and like that was just fascinating to me because you really it's just like sneakers in so many ways, right? It's like you could have a pair of Jordan 1s, Jordan 3s, whatever that is, and each one of us is going to wear it in a completely different way, like just naturally, because we're like, and sometimes you're going to have crossover and be like, yeah, this is, we're looking very similar here, right? Like I've still got like every Giants hat for the most part. I did get rid of some after high school, but like, I've got a solid like 20 plus years worth of Giants hats. Most of them I cannot wear because, I wore them so much that they're just like shrunken down and, all that stuff. But, it's just an interesting like kind of place to be too, because the fitted stuff now, like to your point about like Puff and Mason, like that era, right? Like you're 100% right. You could go into, in Sacramento, there's a store here called Sports Fever. And it's also one of the places where I would go to get jerseys, because the jerseys would, like I'm never paying full price for jerseys. Sorry. But like, I love jerseys, but I love the hunt for those jerseys more than I love paying that much money for them, especially authentics. Cause it's like, look, man, I'm going to wear this jersey 5 times a year tops, if even, because the more jerseys
Tops.
I have, the less I'm going to rotate through. So like, I'm not trying to pay $150, $200, $300 for a jersey. I'm trying to pay $40, $50, maybe more if it's a player that I really got to have. But I would go into this place called Sports Fever. It's in the Arden Mall. I bought this like lifelong discount thing, and I still have this little, it's like the jankiest little like piece of paper. It's a little blue piece of paper. It just has Sports Fever printed on it, and it's a 10% discount. It has the date that I signed up for it. I should find that actually. But so you get 10% off every time you go in there. But I bought it like 20 years ago. Like I don't even remember the date, but it's hella old. But like I still have it. It's like, just, all right, well. But going in there back then, it would be like a yellow Yankees hat. Maybe if you were lucky, you could get a black and white Giants hat. But for the most part, it was anything that was worn on field, right? Like, you might have had some different colored ones back when they were doing the All-Star separately. And like, okay, you had like a Giants on field and an All-Star, and you might be able to get an old logo once in a while. But even with a wall of hats, like it was not like colors, right? It wasn't a lot of selection. There wasn't a lot of choices. And it's shifted so much in recent years. If you haven't been paying attention to hats, everything is kind of like, there's so many people doing it that like the creativity is like endless. It's like, imagine if a Nike, like a Nike or a Jordan retailer was all of a sudden given the opportunity to make their own colorways almost all the time. That's basically what it feels like with fitteds right now, because there's so many retailers that like make some crazy dope hats, but like people don't even know because the names of the places, it's like there's just so many people that are getting to do them. And to Keith's point, they're doing all these collections that I think are just really exciting, right? And it like you could see people starting to connect their passions through the stories that they're weaving into like creating these collections. And to me, it's like, I don't know, it's like sneakers, but also like there's even another level of excitement for me because it's the smaller level of retailers, right? It's like, it feels like a lot of mom and pop shops get their own like colorway of a, whatever hat, or they'll get to put their own spin on something, like cotton candies and all these like, neons and all these different like things where it's like, oh, that's a cool twist, like I kind of want that, And to me, it's also like, although the hats are expensive, I really love the kind of the versatility that you can find with all these different teams out there, right? Like being a Giants fan and wearing almost exclusively Giants hats all the time. I can still find 30, 40 different colors on a regular basis if I wanted to, right? And like mix that up and, tie it together with a sneaker release. And one of the things that I think is going to be fun for the show that we've already had some fun with it, but I wanted to let you guys talk about it a little bit is like, we're going to do a segment called Kicks and Fits. So like, we'll be able to share sort of the sneakers that we're wearing, but also the fitted that we're wearing with that, because I'll toss this to you, Dexter, because you explained it the best. How do you go about choosing that fit? How do you go about choosing the head to toe? and connecting those dots with the stuff that you're wearing for kicks and fits. And like, I guess talk about that part of like just like the style aspect of it and the aesthetic, but then, you know, maybe share one of your kicks and fits that you got.
Oh, okay, okay. So me personally, when I'm getting ready, I mean, I got some beaters. I got some like shoes. I'm like, yo, these are just errand shoes. These are grocery stores. These are Walgreens. These are whatever. Got to do something real quick. All right, cool. Throw those on, comfortable. Don't really care too much, right? But just still like a pair of Jordan 1s or Air Max or something, you know. They're still like some decent shoes, but like it's just like, all right, I've worn these so much, they're taking a L right now, you know. Kind of like how Nick was when he was a kid, you know, L. But so when I'm getting ready for like a real like day, if I'm not going to work, I'm really about to like go hang out, do something. The first thing I think about is what shoe I want to wear. And then I think, what hat do I have that will complement that? And everything in between doesn't really matter. Like Keith's got the white tees, right? I would throw a white tee, a black tee. This damn Tyson tee right here, it's black. It's got a little yellow. You know, it's nothing too, you know, crazy. I don't care about anything between neck and ankle too much, you know. Sweatpants, pair of jeans, like whatever. It's the kicks and the hat. But the kicks first and then the hat. Unless I got a new hat. Then I'm like, whoa, hold on. Do I have a pair of kicks to go with this? So you gotta, that's me personally right there. But if we're going to pull out a kicks and a fit going on, I just happen to have something close. What a coincidence. So the Chicago UNC Jordan 1s with the Myrtle Beach Surfers, which I think this was like the little one-off Surf Dogs, but I think they were called the Myrtle Beach. I can't think of it, but yeah, the color is like right on point. Like the red's the red, the blue's the blue. That's what everything in between, I care less. White tee and a pair of sweats. So the question is, are we going to do a recent cop too? Are we going to show them how we do that as well?
I mean, might as well. You got one, right? So,
I mean, this is a recent cop for sure. This is the Gold Diggers Hat Club, but I got something else for y'all. Hold on. This is the 1905 New York Giants Polo Grounds patch right here. And it has the gold and brown Batterman to match the golden brown patch right there. This is what, Hat Heaven? I think it was a Hat Heaven, yeah. Shout out to Hat Heaven.
Yep.
They be coming through.
I love that one, man.
Yeah,
I love
me
that
too.
one.
Boom, right there. Hat Heaven.
I'm still waiting
what
for
you
mine
got,
to show
Keith?
Up.
You know, it's funny how Nick was talking about, you know, the early 2000s where the hat had to match the shoes, had to match the throwback. I might still be stuck in those times, minus I'm not really wearing the throwback all the time. But, man, my style hasn't changed since probably 2004, except maybe no more tall tees. But besides that, I mean, similar to Dexter, like, it's the hat and the shoes that's the most important to me, but in between still has to match. And a lot of times I don't always have the right thing, which is why 90% of the time, if you see me, I will be in a black tee or a white tee. And then like Dexter, you know, the hat has to match the shoes. I'm really, really particular about my colors matching up. Like I can't have two different shades of blue that are a little bit off. But, you know, if you have that on the head and on the feet, if they're separated, you can't always tell. So I can get away with it a little bit more. So
That's a good point.
You know,
That's a good point.
I could be one, maybe two shades off. You know what I mean? It might deceive you a little bit if you got to look up and down and, you know, they're not sitting right next to each other. But it's super similar to Dexter. You know, it's the hat and the shoes for me. You know, white tees are $5 at the liquor store. I can run through those all day.
There you go.
But for the kicks and the fits, pull out the
Nice.
LeBron 8 South Beaches which I was able to obtain by someone on the Discord. Thank you again, Todd, for hitting on me when those dropped. Really appreciate it. And the hat we got to match is the Hat
come
Club.
on.
This is the Cyberpunks.
Are you pulling the black
It's
light out for
I
him?
want to say this is not the black light one. You might have to watch an episode of Crown and Stitch if you want to see the black. Nah, this is a little different, but you know, you got the blues that kind of match up on there, and then especially like on the side patch, like
no, that's
little off. But like I said, between the hat and the feet, you know, I'm at least hoping somebody doesn't catch that. And if you do, call me out. Let me know so I switch it up the next time.
So do you start feet first, sneakers first, then fitted?
It depends. Sometimes I'll get a hat because I really like it, but I'll sit on it for 6 months until I either have the funds or find the right sneaker to match with it. You know, there's a couple hats I haven't even pulled out yet because I'm like, man, I don't know how to make this work with the kick. So they stay on the shelf with the sticker on until I'm ready to, you know, pull it off and till I find the right thing to go on my feet that'll match you.
I mean, Dexter made a good point too. Like sometimes you get that new one in and you just got to rock it right away, right? And I know everybody is listening thinking sneakers. Like it's the same thing for a hat, right? When you get a good when you've been waiting, like there's just no stopping that. Just going straight to the dome, man. Like gotta have it on. If I'm not leaving the house without it, sometimes it's like when you get like a that fresh pair of like Air Maxes or something, like where you're just like, damn, this color is popping. You have to wear it. I feel the same way about hats sometimes, just like just get that same big ass grin on my face, opening the box, feeling like kid at Christmas, and man,
the good thing is a pair of white on white Air Forces matches with everything. So when in doubt, you could throw on an all white or all black shoe and you can wear any hat you want.
True. Good point. All right. So Crown and Stitch is going to be on Wednesdays. You'll be able to catch the first few episodes this week. You'll be able to subscribe to us on YouTube, on Twitch, on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and I don't know, all those places. Everybody knows guys are Giants fans. Gonna assume that a Giants hat is probably one of the go-tos. Just to give a little more insight to your choices here, since we've been talking a lot about which comes first kind of conversation. What's one of your go-to sneakers? What's one of your go-to sneakers that you're always going to go back to? And what's one of the fitteds non-Giants that you're always going to go back to?
Dexter, take this one first. I need to think.
Oh man, I'm on the spot. Damn. Okay.
My bad.
So my favorite shoe of all time is the original Foamposite penny royal blue, no swoosh, the original. There was nothing else. That was it. They broke the fucking mold. Okay, I don't want to hear anything else about this. That was it. I love that damn shoe. I slept with that shoe. Okay. Oh man, like if they had a suitcase back then for shoes, that would have been me going to my basketball games because I've literally carried it in the box like a baby. But I haven't worn those as much recently. I would say whenever I'm feeling like, all right, I'm about to step it up. Like you got a good suit you want to put on for your interview or, meeting or something. With me, that's probably going to be either just a pair of Space Jams, which I have fucking every pair of them that ever came out, or Shatter Backboards, man.
Always a good choice.
And since I can't go black and orange Giants hat, damn. So I have an Oakland A's hat with the 1984 Giants Candlestick All-Star Game patch on the side. So it's an A's hat with the Giants on the same damn hat. That or this Cleveland Indians Freddy Krueger Nightmare Edition hat. I love this damn thing. I have the Freddy Krueger Vans too. So there you go. Hat, kicks, match, everything in between. Who cares?
Good choice. For me, it would have to be a pair of Concord 11s. I got them maybe about a year ago. I, slept on them on the release, but once I got my pair, I just feel like it's such a classic looking shoe, and it's pretty easy to match with everything. There's nothing that you could throw on that's going to look bad with a pair of Concord 11s, unless you're doing something crazy. But yeah, that's just it's a perfect shoe to me. It really doesn't get any better than that. And as far as the hat goes, you said a non-Giants hat, right? Yep. Just to go with the black and white theme of the Concord 11s, I would say the Birmingham Barons hat. I got a Birmingham Barons. That's one of my 2 minor league hats, and it just is beautiful. It has the side patch has gold side patch, and the UV is like a really light teal color. So it's just like a little splash of color in there to break it up a little bit. But I don't know.
What is the patch?
I don't know
on
if it's
the
just
side?
from Jordan playing baseball for them. You know what? Let me pull it out. I think it's the Southern League, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's okay. That makes perfect sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Damn, that's
watching
nice.
it out, and then it's like a light blue teal, kind of like a almost same damn color as my hat, maybe a shade or 2 lighter. But I don't know. This is just, I don't know if it's because seeing Jordan play baseball for them and having the baseball cards, that I was super juiced when they had I was flipping through baseball cards as a kid and found Michael Jordan on a baseball card. That kind of blew my mind, and I wish I still held on to those 2. I don't know where they ended up, through the moves or whatever, but I need one of those back. Time to go hunt eBay.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually got that hat. So like I have to check mine. You have to catch the Crown and Stitch podcast, but I'll pull it out because I can't remember if my undervisor is that color or if it's black. And it makes me wonder when that cycle comes back around, right? Because just like sneakers, right? You got like the retros popping off every few years for certain things, but then other things take a while to come back around. And then there's that slight twist where the undervisor is a little bit different this time around. So we need a site to document all this stuff is what we need. Do
you remember where you bought yours from?
I don't remember. I mean, my default answer to that is Hat Club because I seem to buy a lot of stuff from them, but it really could be anywhere, to be honest. And the problem is I unfortunately haven't always used the same email because I'll use one that's my normal email, and then I'll be I use this one to make purchases, so I get all the the sale emails and all the notifications over here. So sometimes I end up with multiple accounts on a site, not even intending to have multiple accounts on a site, so but yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check it out. That'll be a good what's
that's
that?
Smart and confusing. I said that's smart and
it'll
probably
totally
confuse the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass sometimes because I'm just wait, what did I sign up for this with? Why did I sign up for this in the first place?
Let me interject real quick. So we were talking undervisors. So earlier, while I was waiting for us to all get together on the same feed here and do this, I was scouring this little website. Not going to tell you what it is because we're going to get way more in detail on that on Crown and Stitch. But I was reading some tidbits in there, and on the podcast, we like to drop some hat facts. We're nerds. It's not about style 100%. We're really about all of the hat, the construction of the hat, the logo, how it changes, the undervisor, the side patches. All these things have history. And while I was scouring that, they said that the Giants were the first team to utilize black undervisors in the mid-90s. So
that's crazy.
Black nasty.
History right there.
Yep.
So if you follow and subscribe, you're going to get knowledge, not just fly ass hats all the time. But also, I have a question for you guys. As a host, sometimes I, want to do my host thing. I have a question for you guys. So we're talking about Jordan 11s, and I used to know a company or a shoe store that was backdooring shoes like crazy. And so I would get all holiday Jordan 11s on the same day every year. How do you guys feel about getting shoes, since it's a sneaker history? How do you feel about getting shoes early or late? Or do you care? Or do you want them day one? Or if you do want to spend $30 extra, would you mind getting them early? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, if it was only $30 to get them early, I would pay that every time, you know. That way I don't got to wake up at 7 a.m. for a sneakers release on a Saturday, or, you know, have to deal with taking a million L's, anything like that. You know, I'd definitely be down to get them early, but it doesn't really bother me either way. You know, if it's a shoe that I want and I'm able to obtain it, it's all good. It could be, you know, same day, early, a month later, as long as I'm not having to pay resale. You know, the $30 early, that's not too big a deal for me. I can make that happen, but, you know, as long as they're not pounding me over the head for $500.
Yeah, but sometimes it is $30. Then they want fees and shipping, so that 30 turns into 60. You know, that's really the issue there.
Yeah. Yep.
No, that's
I mean,
true.
that's a good question, because it's different for everybody too, right? Like, and it's different for every shoe. There are some shoes that, like, I mean, being a Penny fan, the LWP, if it came back again, would be a shoe that I would just absolutely have to have.
Oh,
like, I've got
God.
a couple pairs from the 2013 release or whatever, but the low top version of the LWP was called the Lambaste, and that was the first shoe I bought with my own money.
Yes.
Like, I went and bought I got the black with the royal swoosh, and I got the socks with the black with the royal swoosh to match. I got like royal, like, basketball shorts. Like, I got a shirt to go with it, a Nike shirt. It was like the first time I was like, you know, I had like worked enough to have money to buy the full head to toe fit. And so, like, if that shoe came back, like, you know, unfortunately I'd probably be like, nobody's going to want it. And then it would sell out. And then I'd be like, well, I'll wait till somebody lowers the price a little bit more. And then I'd realize, okay, I'm just going to have to pay way too much to get these. But at the same time, like, I don't feel like I have to have a lot of things, like, you know, to buy it ahead of time or to pay resale for it. There's just so much stuff coming out that, like, you know, aside from a shoe like Shattered Backboards, where, like, being a Giants fan, a Jordan 1 fan, like, that was just a shoe that I wanted from the very beginning. I didn't buy it. I didn't hit on it. Like, I ended up buying it, you know, secondhand, like, months later from a friend, which, you know, like, thankfully he sold it to me for a relatively cheap price. Still paid him more than retail, because clearly the shoe's worth much more. But, you know, it just varies on the shoe for me, to be honest. And, you know, like, I don't have any problems with it either way, right? Like, I understand that, like, hey, if you're backdooring shoes to make your rent as a you know, an independent shoe store, that's what you do. You know, like, it's part of the business at this point, right? Because you've also got to buy all that crap that, you know, that the brands want to make you sell that's not going to sell. So, and as far as resale, I try not to pay resale for anything. I haven't really paid like too crazy of prices on anything, other than maybe a couple of pairs here and there, where, like, I collect Soul Collector collabs, and, you know, and Reebok Questions are like my two kind of like die hard. I'm very committed to these shoes. And, like, you know, there's a few others. Like, I have like the Nike Town San Francisco joints, the Air Max 90s, and I paid, you know, like, they'll go for like $800, $1,200. I think I got them for like $450, $500, something like that. And that's the most I've ever paid for a pair of shoes. But there's only 90 of those shoes, I think, and very specific. You know, I was hanging out trying to get them, you know, the first time they dropped. And, you know, if you're anywhere around the Bay Area, man, Nike Town San Francisco, when it first opened, was like, it was like a life-changing experience. Like, it was like, what? We can get like all these crazy things.
Oh my God, can we talk about Nike Town?
You know? So, yeah, kind of just all over the place for me, to be honest, to answer that the best I can, I guess. But how about you, Dexter? How do you feel about it?
Oh, I mean, I want at least those Levins. I wanted them as soon as I could get them because I didn't want to have to worry about not wanting them. Obviously, later on, they started making what 1.5 million plus
Yeah.
every release, so everybody was getting them. You could have a whole family of people. Grandma gets a pair, the baby gets a pair, the mailman can have a pair. Like everybody, like they could be house shoes essentially. But there was a point where they weren't that abundant. People were getting shot, robbed for
Yep.
them. So I was like, yo, I gotta have them. Like, I want them. Like, how soon are you guys going to release them? Like, as soon as they come in the door, they're going out the back door. That's
Yep.
what the whole back door
Yep.
means, you know? So I was like, yo, I'll be here. I'll be at the back door. I'll be in the parking lot. So I was like, man, how much you want? Like, so I don't have to worry about it. Then, like, you know, even if I wore them a week later, everybody's like, whoa, hold on. What are those? I'm like, oh, you'll find out in a couple weeks, you know? That was like, you know, little flex. That was enough for me, you know?
Totally. Definitely back then I would have been more likely to pay a little extra to get it backdoored compared to like nowadays, right? Nowadays I just feel like even if you miss a shoe, it's not like it's impossible to get. But like in 2001, if you didn't get cool gray 11s, if you didn't find them on Nike Talk or Soul Collector forum, ISS forums, or maybe on eBay, but like, you know, the fake stuff on eBay was a problem back then. You know, there was no checks and balances keeping people safe. If you got screwed out of a pair, you know, like nobody wanted to go through all those disputes and filing with PayPal and filing with eBay, and like all that stuff was all just a pain in the ass. So like back then, yeah, like I would have, had I known somebody, you know, like 2001, you know, it's funny. We just drove by Florin Mall today for the first time. And like, since I've been back in Sacramento, cause my parents live out that direction and I haven't been by there in forever. Like, you know, like dudes got robbed at Florin Mall when those cool gray 11s dropped. Like we all heard about it through Nike Talk and then saw it on the news and we're like, oh, glad we went to Arden. Glad we went to Sunrise Mall. You know, I still didn't get a pair, but like we went to Arden and then we drove all the way out to Sunrise Mall to try to get them too. And, you know, of course, like no luck, but it's interesting because it's changed so much, you know, and to your point, like there's so much more out there now that, you know, I feel like if I really wanted something, I can always just go scoop it off of, you know, one of these resale sites. And, you know, most of them are pretty good at authenticating the stuff nowadays. So at least I hope they are. But all right, so let's wrap this up real quick. We got new podcast. Gonna talk some fitteds. Gonna talk some obscure hats. We got some good obscure hats already in the bag. We're gonna talk probably some snapbacks. You know, this is a full headwear experience. I'll say. It's gonna be on Wednesdays. Probably drop it in the mornings, West Coast time. At Crown and Stitch on all the platforms, at Crown and Stitch or / Crown and Stitch on YouTube. But more importantly, you guys got to follow Dexter and Keith. So guys, you guys got to let them know how they can connect with you.
You can follow me on IG at Keith the Sneak with 2 Ks. I am also pretty active in the Sneaker History Discord under the same username. Find me there. But like Nick said, more importantly, follow at Crown and Stitch on all the platforms.
I'm Dexter, at Smooth as Eggs on everything. If you can find it, I'm probably already got my domain name there. Username is sewn up, like whatever new hipping happening kid damn app that's popping up. I'm downloading it fast, getting my name, and then I'm dishing it to the side. But also, Industry Special Podcast. That's my podcast. Like I said, I have had Nick on. I have had other people in the Sneaker History Discord on. Clint and Varian is a top 5 episode, period, of any podcast in history. It is like Mount Rushmore of podcast episodes. It was amazing. I had never talked to Clint, never met that man in my life, and it was just genuine, great times and fun talk. Please check it out. Follow, like, subscribe. I've been on a hiatus recording because we've been doing this, and you're going to see on Wednesday, we've been putting in good work for y'all. So we're going to have the social media's going to be going on. Hashtag Squatchy Gang. Okay. And if you don't know what that is, check out Crown and Stitched. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank y'all. Peace. See y'all soon.
Exactly. Hey, actually, too, before we get out of here, we already got a list of folks that we're gonna have come on and talk about fitteds as well. So get you a little insider knowledge to Dexter's point earlier about, it's much more than just the aesthetics. We gotta learn some things while we're doing this. We gotta learn as hosts, but you get to learn as listeners. So yeah, I guess that's about it for me. Any last parting thoughts from you guys before we wrap?
Squatchy gang.
Squatchy
That's about
gang.
it.
Squatchy gang.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you for rocking with us. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube, to all the different places. We're going to keep telling you about this because we're excited to do this podcast for you and share some of our love for fitteds, snapbacks, hats, headwear, whatever you want to call it. Squatchy gang. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.